want to fend for myself, and I want to build people up for them to fend. Hey everybody, Clark Fredericks here for a new edition of the Free Like Me podcast. Guests come on, speak their truth, leave their shame behind, and have a new lease on life. If you would, please hit the like button, leave a comment, and share these. There's analytics that help this grow, and I could use your support to continue to grow. And also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. My book, Scarred, is due for release July 29th. You can get it pre-ordered on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or anywhere else that sells books. Don't wait till the last second. I'm going to come knocking on your door. Don't make me do that. It's going to be a huge hit, and I want you to be a part of the ride we go on to heal lives and give people hope back and inspire people. So please join me on that ride. And if you're interested in being a guest on this show or in my coaching program, go to any one of my social media sites and hit the connect link, or you can go to my website, freelike-me.com, and fill out a form and set up a consultation call, and we'll get you going. And this week, we are going overseas for my second time, back to the UK, to the country of Wales. And we're going to meet a brave woman who's coming on, who wants to rid herself of the shame she's been carrying since her childhood. So let's get to it. So my guest this week is Juanita from the country of Wales. And we're going to do a little bit different this week. Juanita wants to start at the present and then work herself back to her childhood. Usually we go childhood forward. So I like this idea. It makes her more comfortable in telling her story, and I'm all for that. And so let's introduce Juanita. Hey there, honey.
Hi.
Welcome aboard.
Hi.
Nice to have you.
Oh, thank you for hosting me. That's a dream come true.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, this is when, social media can be so divisive, especially with politics. But when we do something like this where, years ago, you would be stuck with your pain over there in Wales, and I'd be stuck in my little county here in New Jersey. And now with social media, we can meet people around the world, and we can help each other and strengthen each other and help each other heal. And that's where social media is great.
Yeah, it's one of the good things of social media.
And so many of our parents, I've said this over and over, our grandparents, our parents, there was wars, they had PTSD, they had trauma in their lives, and they had no outlet like we have nowadays to reach other people in a similar situation. They just had to struggle with their trauma. Going to therapists years ago was an absolute no. And so, a lot of people just suffered silently, hit the bottle too hard, drank too heavily, and then raised children that end up having, problems,
Even through my life, it's been a real changing world. It's like when I was a kid, I remember the first hotline coming out here. I don't know what it was like over there, but we had the NSPCC come out. I was 15, and that was just nothing like that existed to even reach out for help. I thought at that time, wow, I wish they'd had something like that when I was a kid, not even taking in that I actually still was a kid, 15, it's still going through it all. It was but.
So this is awesome that we can connect. You've had trauma starting early on, which we'll get to. You had trauma later on, I believe it was in your 40s as well, which we're going to get to. And in all that trauma, you also had trauma of failed relationship with your parents, especially your mother, who was very narcissistic and who you didn't feel comfortable going to with any of your problems. And you recently lost her in the last week or two. Just touch on that failed relationship and the loss of your mom, and what you're feeling right now.
Obviously, it's a momentous thing for anybody losing your mum. But it's just been a massive, um, I can't think of another word apart from shock, because yeah, we came into the new year. She died on the 9th of January, but we'd already spoken. I just like set up a call with you to come on to this, and then it was like within days my world changed again. Because I did even think about just phoning up and canceling, because I thought, oh, I don't, this is going to be huge with family dynamics and stuff. I was estranged from my mum, so I did manage to speak to her on her deathbed.
Did you get any resolution, did you feel?
Yeah, I
You
did.
did.
I told her that I didn't hold any hate or any resentment, but it literally was just on the spot. Like, I didn't know she was ill. I didn't know it was going to happen, and it just came out of me. It wasn't that I was just, like saying it to try and make her feel better or anything. It was literally in me, which is really good because it felt really healing. It was healing for me, and I'm sure it was healing for her.
And what caused your estrangement? Can we touch on that, or are you comfortable with talking about that?
It gets complicated, doesn't it? It's always been complicated, but so really, I distanced myself this time because for years it's been like this, backwards and forwards. I wouldn't have anything to do with her for a few years, and then we'd get back in touch, and then it would be okay for a bit, and then the next, for want of a better phrase, load of shit would happen, and you get dragged into like the drama and God knows what going on. Um, just always hung around with people that I just wouldn't want to know whether, when I was a kid, those were abusers, and they probably still are or were. I don't even know who they'd be now, but it's like I've lost my thread with that.
It was just constant drama and
Yeah, it's like it's always like this. The trauma is like, woof. So this time it was, I distanced myself from her because in the last couple of years, it was 2023, the start of 2023, I was back in touch with my mum just, and stuff about all the abuse that had happened came up yet again through something else. It's funny how it like comes back round, even though that isn't what was happening, but then something else set it all off. And this time I spoke to her and told it more in detail than I ever had, because when she'd heard about the abuse before, through years over time, it had been through other people, whether that had been the police or whether that had been people that we knew. I hadn't really spoken directly to her about it. So this time I'd spoken directly to her about it. And lo and behold, the same thing happened that happened when I was a child, which for me was really actually really confirming to me, reconfirming. Um, because as a child, I couldn't go to her. I knew I couldn't go to her. I knew it'd be absolutely detrimental to go to her, to be honest. Um, and so when I've told her about the abuse in 2023, she said that she would have to ask my cousin, who was one of the abusers when I was a child. I begged her not to like speak. I didn't mind her speaking to him, but I said, he's just going to lie to you, and please don't believe him. But she did speak to him, and it just I don't know if she believed him, but she didn't believe me. I don't know. It's like she said she didn't not believe me, but she couldn't, and I sort of get that as well. It's like she couldn't get to grips with it.
it's almost like it's too much for her, like to come to grips with it.
Yeah, but it's like, it's like, God, like I'm 53 now, so I was like 51, it's like not a kid anymore coming to her or anything. Not that I did when I was a child anyway, but
And what reason would you have to lie about your cousin raping you?
yeah, it's just,
She wasn't there to comfort you or protect you.
he was always the golden boy, and this was the thing. It was like always like that, and I knew that from, like, yeah, literally as a really young child. I knew there was no. It started like that. He'd always lie. He'd always get away with that. So nothing had changed. It was like, there you go, it was the same. But to me, it was like, yeah, it was good for me knowing that. It was good therapy, because it was like, because sometimes I might think, oh, maybe I've made it into a bigger thing than it was, and maybe it wasn't like that. But then this happening as an adult, it's like, no, it absolutely was like that. And I was absolutely right not to go to her as a child. It was like,
And you just mentioned there you were right not to go to her as a child, and you said earlier that you felt, no way could I go to my mother with the abuse I faced. What and why was that? Like what kind of vibe or relationship did you not have or have that you felt you couldn't go to her with this?
mum's extremely difficult. Whether she was narcissistic comes up, that word comes up. Whether I sort of think maybe she was undiagnosed with BPD or something, some mental condition, and I don't know. I'll never know what because she never got any help. Um, but she was extremely difficult to deal with. It was like walking on eggshells all the time with her. It's just you just never knew what you were going to get. So she was part of the abuse, even though it's almost like a split personality, which is like, so she could be the most loving mother, and then on the other hand, she'd literally be stabbing you in the back while giving you a hug.
And I've heard that, like if you've listened to any of the podcasts, I've heard that from so many of my guests, starting off with Michelle, my first guest, she goes to her mother about, the stepdad abusing her and the little 3-year-old sister, and the mother just slaps her and tells her to keep her mouth shut. And Heidi, goes to her mother about her boyfriend, raping her. And the mother's like, well, we got to keep a roof over our head. So suck it up, Buttercup. Like, wow. It's just over and over, story after story. I've heard that. It's shocking, that mothers can be that callous, and you face that also. So I get it. I understand it. It's heartbreaking, but I get it.
Yeah, she's really difficult to explain. It's like, and there's so much of it when I think about it stuff. It's like, yeah, so trying to pick one bit of it, or yeah, how to explain her. I've always struggled with that. Literally, how to explain my mother to people.
And I'm sure it feels a little weird now that she's passed. You like to you don't want to sit here and stomp on her, on a program, but you've been holding this in your whole life, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I've just got her ashes back today.
You got what? Her
Her
ashes?
ashes back, so she's downstairs.
She's listening.
Oh my god. Okay.
All right, so let's start with your story. The rest of
Yeah.
your story, where you want to go. From now backwards.
Let's start at the end. So in 2021, at the age of 49, just before I'm 50 years of age, I became conscious of being raped by a different cousin, not the same cousin, a different cousin, but it had actually been 9 years previous to that.
You told me you have suffered from is the term dissociative amnesia, which is like thoughts coming back to people.
Yes, this is the dissociative amnesia. Yeah, it's literally blocked out completely. Well, I say completely. Part of it was blocked out completely. I had no idea he'd raped me. So what came screaming into my consciousness, because it's like it's just it's because you've not been conscious of it before. It's like it's just happened because it literally has just happened. So it's such a horrible, horrendous thing to go through. I mean, it's bad enough to go through it anyway, but then to have this like delayed recall as well, they can call it sometimes, um, of like 9 years is just. I had no idea. I mean, I understood the memory. I understood what was going on, but I didn't understand anything about dissociative amnesia. I didn't understand why I'd now remembered something so horrific, and like how could you not know that? It was just world like that yet again.
Was there anything that triggered you at 41 to bring these out?
I don't know. So apparently, as I've done my research and gone on, it's like it's usually when you've got to a good place in your life that then you're able to now deal with it. So that's when, because it feels horrible. It feels like, everything's going great, everything's fine, like, and then all of a sudden you start having these memories back that literally just turn your world upside down. I'd gone out with a guy. So partly I thought that maybe it was that this guy was a friend of my cousin's, and my cousin was a tattoo artist. And the guy that I'd gone out with, I only went out with him for like 6 months. I've known him since I was like 17. But anyway, um, he'd got tattoos that my cousin had done on him. And I feel like maybe it was because of the tattoos on him. And then when he's touching me, it's like triggered that. But it didn't trigger it straight away. It's still taken time to like come through. But I didn't feel right. I felt really trippy. Even when I was g so it was almost like maybe I was already in this weird trance thing, but then it was weird before it as well, so I don't know if I was just in a transition coming into it, but I just 'cause I'd never really never experienced that before, I didn't know that that's what was happening. I mean, you'd never guess that. You couldn't know that that's what's gonna happen to you when you have no idea that that's what's happened.
Yeah, I had, it's that sounds eerily similar to the guest Christine I had on, where she had blacked out uh, her father's abuse early on, and in her late 20s, she was having a sexual encounter with a boyfriend, and he wanted to do a specific sex act with her, and she agreed. And in the middle of that sex act, it just brought out her father doing that same sex act to her. So it's like, he's your boyfriend's touching you with his tattoos, and it's all of a sudden triggering, what your cousin did to you. It's very similar.
Yeah, it is. Apparently, it's really, again, as I've gone on and done research into it, it's quite common, but you don't I don't know if it's that we don't hear a lot about abuse anyway. Still, it's still in early days of people like coming forward and talking about it, even in this so-called modern world. It's still like, isn't it? It's like people still aren't really, it's almost like they need a G up. Um, yeah, so yeah, it is quite common in assault. There's a lady here called Carolyn Spring. She's an author and does all sorts of things, podcasts and all sorts. She'd actually had a baby and had no recollection of it.
So what did you start recalling that happened with your cousin?
What I recalled was him sodomizing me. So the actual event had been I'd stayed a night at my cousin's, and then this is the following morning is what I've remembered in the dissociative amnesia. The thing that I've remembered is him sodomizing me. And then when I've had that come to me, then I was able to look at the rest of the night. So, because it was like, so, like, what the hell has gone on? What has happened? Because to me, I had part memory of sleeping with him, but I thought it'd been consensual the night before. But it was all these like little fragments of memory that it wasn't all together. So it was just like it was crazy. So, but also I'd never wanted to look at that bit that I knew that I remembered anyway. I never wanted to look at it because it was like so horrific. I was just like so embarrassed of my own self. I know, like I thought I'd take it to my grave. I literally did because it was like, oh my God, like what happened there? And yeah, so I never like wanted to even like think about what happened. But then when this memories come back to me of him sodomizing me the next morning before I can get out of there, then I've had to replay, I've replayed the night before because it's like, so hang on, like what has happened the night before? So I believe that he's drugs me, rapes me, and then before I've managed to, I was literally trying to get out the bed in the morning and he's just grabbed me and sodomized me.
And well, you didn't remember it for 9 years, or you blacked it out. When you did recall it, did you ever confront him on it?
I never confronted him. But I reported it to the police. I thought about confronting him. I thought about, but I hadn't really seen him. So also it's like, yeah, so I literally like cut off contact virtually without like anything happening. But our lives had just gone different. He lives like 40 miles away. So I just, yeah, distanced myself anyway. So I hadn't really had anything to do with him.
And what's it feel like when these memories start coming back? Do you feel like you're losing your mind? Like,
So I can't even, I literally, my own self was decimated just because one, that the things happened, that's happened, but because of this delay, it's just like, so I was in work. I worked, and so I had to get up and go to work the next day. So I've gone to work, but my whole being was just absolutely in so much shock, and I just couldn't, I just I just couldn't make sense of the world. But this was really, again, really reminiscent of what I must have gone through as a child. Because I just thought, I can't believe that a child was able to like just carry on through this. So, but that's what, so I went to work. I thought, there's no way I can ever tell anybody this. And then by the end of that day, maybe even like seconds into work, it was all a blur. Um, there was no way that I could not tell them or everybody. It was like, no, my world has changed. And I just thought, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not, I can't. I just can't. It would have killed me. It literally would have killed me to try and keep that down and keep that secret. But I just thought, I can't do this again. I can't do this anymore. I'm not doing this. But trying to go in and tell I don't know if it was the next day. It was pretty soon though. I went in and I told my boss what had happened. But trying to explain that to somebody when you don't understand it yet yourself, what's happened, it was just like, God. And so part of my, what's the word? The effects of trauma and stuff as well is I'm not, confrontation is not the right word, like dealing with authority. So the whole thing of having to like ask my boss to like, could I have a word and speak to him in his office and then tell him this, such a personal thing.
how did he respond?
He was floored. Thank God he was a lovely, but he's a lovely boss. They're a lovely, all of the team were amazing. I actually went and told the whole team
Wow.
a few weeks down the line. I asked him if I could get everyone together because I thought, yeah, I just thought I'm not doing this. And everybody knew by then because we were a close little team. They knew that something was wrong, and people were starting to think maybe I got cancer or maybe she's dying. Like what's happened? What's going on? And it's like, no. But again, I thought I'm not hiding. It's not my. It is that thing. It's not my shame. I didn't do anything. I don't. I need to be like this. So yeah, I got the whole team brought together and I told the whole team what had happened to me.
That's a big step.
That's a I kept the speech because it is like, it's just like, I was like, this is my paperwork. It's like, oh my God. Because he's so frightened because he didn't know how people are going to react. And it's just on so many levels, so many things going on. It's like, even my boss came, because I was like, this is the paperwork. He came and I didn't even know I was shaking. He's like, you don't have to do this. It's like, no, I do. I do have to do this. And within seconds, it was fine.
I wonder if your mind blocked that out for 9 years because of what happened as a child. And it, like, our minds say, we've got to protect ourselves because you just can't handle it as a child. So your mind, tries to save you as a child, and then later on in life, when it happens again, your mind says, "Oh, it's happening again. We got to block this out to save us," and it does it again for you.
And that's exactly what has happened. Little did I know that this behavior, the dissociation had become so severe that I was becoming amnesic. I probably still don't know everything that happened to me because I didn't know that had become a pattern that had happened from when I was a child. So yeah, so
All right, well, let's keep rewinding, Juanita. Let's rewind.
yeah, let's keep rewinding. So yeah, I had had one of these. I'd had one memory come back before this, but it wasn't anything like this. And it was years before that, in 1997, I believe it was. I was first reporting to the police about all my childhood abuse. And while I was giving my interview,
What age are you when you're at the police?
I think it was 26.
What spurred you on to go to the police?
As far as I can remember, or as far as I can remember at this moment, it was speaking to somebody else who'd been through abuse themselves. Nothing to do with my abuse. It was just a friend that I met, and he was quite open about talking about he'd been through. Yeah, him and his wife had been through. They'd both been in care, and so they'd met in care, and yeah, so they both had their own thing. But yeah, he was quite open talking about his own abuse, and so it was like, oh,
And he urged you to go to the police?
he did. Yeah, he did.
So you're 26, 27 at the police.
Yeah, so while I was in literally giving an interview, a memory came back to me. But like because it was I want to say I hate it when I say it was small because it's not small. The report that I was giving was about my original abuse that had happened, so sexual abuse by the headmaster of my primary school.
Just so we're people in America understand. Over here we have principals. So would a headmaster be like the principal?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the primary school is like so you go for us, we go nursery, starting between 3 and 5, and then 5 up to about 11, you're in primary school, and then you go up to the high school.
Okay. So primary is when this happened from like age 5 to 11.
It was between 3 and 5 that he started abusing me, but I can't actually recall, like, what age I was. I used to go through all the ages that things that happened to me when I was a kid, but it's a long time since I was a kid now. So, but I stopped doing that, and it was weird because it was I don't know why I felt like it was important to remember. So I had all these different ages, sadly. Um, but yeah, maybe it's a good thing they're lost to time.
And all right, so let's get in. How would a headmaster, a principal basically of a school, how would he get you to abuse you?
He'd just come and take you out of class. He'd come and take you out of class.
He would come into a class and just say, Juanita, come.
Yeah, he'd pick a couple of you to come and do whatever it would be, whatever excuse he had, whether it was collecting PE equipment, sports equipment, or yeah, helping like do cleaning. He did. It was a very I don't know what it's like now, and I think our school was maybe different to others. So it's I'm really rural, and there was like, oh god, it's really tiny. It's a tiny village. There's probably not more than there's probably not even 2,000 people in the village there. So it is really small. Just to give it a bit of context, and this is like early 70s as well.
Was this the norm for him to come in from time to time and say, you three come with me. We've got some during the middle of the class. Just come with me. And he's the headmaster. So the teacher's like, okay, take him.
He was so well practiced for one. I don't even like it when I say that phrase either, but I don't know what age, because to me as a young child, like he was really old anyway, but he was really old. He must have been like 60, late 50s, been on the nicest side to him. But yeah, so he'd been there. I don't know how long he'd been the headmaster at the school, but I reckon for a long time. So he was just, I think they'd all just got used to it. It was like the norm there. Because all those teachers, I think they must have known what he was doing. So he used to take me to a shed that was on the school grounds. And again, it had sports equipment in there. I couldn't even tell you really what was in there altogether. And I feel like he abused different children in different parts of the school, because I seen him once come out of a different room, which was like a place that they kept books and stuff, like exercise books and stationery and things like that. And he came out. I walked by as he was coming out of there with my friend, but the door was shut. So even as a child, and I guess because I was already being abused by him as well, but I knew what he was doing. I knew that he'd just been abusing her in there. There's no reason for anyone to have the door shut.
He had your friend in the book room.
He had my friends in there. So shocking. I said he was. As a child, I must have been about 8 then. But to me, I was heartbroken. I hated her. I hated her. I hated him and I hated her because I felt jealous.
Really?
Because I thought, because like you'd be like his special girl.
He made you feel special?
Yeah. But of course, like talking from, like I say, from between 3 and 5, you've got no chance of understanding like dynamics of relationships or or anything. Yeah, first time I've ever felt jealous of anything in my life. I was like, and that was it. It was like, oh God, my God.
You were the quote unquote the shed girl.
I was the shed girl. Yeah.
So, like, if he takes, just so the audience, can understand, if he takes three of you out of the classroom to isolate you, he has the other two go do something, and then he says, "You're going to come with me to the shed."
Yeah, they just like it'd be like you'd be like the say if it's like yeah, whatever it is, even if it's getting the exercise books, it's like, yeah, those two have got the books and off they go. And
And you come with me. Well, we're going to do stuff in the shed.
but then he carried so then he started abusing me in my home then as well. So he used for me, it was using music. So he was also the music teacher. He was also the Welsh teacher. He was also involved with the church, which was opposite the school. It like he's just embedded in like the community completely, widespread as well, not just in that little village, like like all around the area.
They hide in plain sight. They're not the little troll under the bridge snatching you as you walk across the bridge. They're right forefront in the community where nobody will suspect.
Like my family felt privileged that he was coming to give me like music lessons at home. Aren't we so lucky that he's given her extra lessons and taking his time? And, isn't he such a nice guy? It's like taking her under his wing. It's like that. It's like,
Yeah. So how, like, he would come over to give you music. What are we talking? Piano or
so I used to play piano, but and it was electrical keyboard that I remember. My grandparents had a piano, so it was recorder. It was recorder, recorder, that horrible instrument when you were kids.
now? Would members of your family be in the house? Would he get you into another room with a door closed or a curtain drawn or something?
Yeah, so it'd be in a separate room, and it was like, yeah, door shut, private. But mum and my sister could be in the other room. But I don't remember dad being there. But dad, to be honest, was always. It seemed like he was always at work, which he probably was. It's always at work. Yeah. So anybody out there, don't ever let anybody do that. Doesn't matter what they're teaching. There's no reason. There's no reason in the world for the door to be shut.
Like your mother and sister are literally in the next room, but they hear the keyboard going, so they're like, "Oh," and then he's, got himself exposed to you and doing stuff to you. It's like, it's unbelievable. They have such a high position, like, of authority, where nobody even questions them. Like, oh, like no teacher looked out of the classrooms and saw a 60-year-old man, marching a 5-year-old girl to a shed and thinks anything of it.
I can't believe that they would be fooled by him. I think they had full knowledge of what was going on, but it was probably worth more, more than a job's worth to say anything. Like, who's going to say anything? It's almost like everyone is being abused in one way or another. Everybody's under him because, and again, and I don't know. I hope the world is different. I hope the world is, is different now. But but I feel like then there wasn't like organizations that are now. There was nobody spoke about anything, because this is like early 70s going into the early 80s. I was 13 when he stopped abusing me. So I left the school when I was 9, but he still kept coming to my other home addresses because it's all still in the same area, still coming to give me music lessons.
So this went on from like 3, 4, all the way up to 13.
at 11 years old, I started my periods, and I didn't know if because he used to put himself up against me, never put himself in me as far as I know, as far as my memory knows, but he used to put himself up against me. Well, I didn't know if that was enough to get me pregnant. 'Cause of, like, the limited, sexual education that they'd give you in school. Again, different time. It's like you couldn't just look things up. You couldn't ask anybody. So and I didn't I was so frightened that he was gonna get me pregnant. So, actually this time when this happened, I was at home on my own, so he'd obviously come at times when I was just there on my own as well. So, he'd come round and he wants to do the same ritual that he's been doing all these years, but I stopped him. Even that was such a huge I didn't know I thought I did think that I would die saying no to him. I didn't know how I was gonna say no to him. But he didn't I said no, and that was just it because I couldn't believe it. I was so angry.
Did you say no because of your period?
Yeah, because I thought he would I didn't have the period at that moment, but I thought because he was putting himself up against me that I could become pregnant. So I've just said no to him, and he never said a word to me. So I figured that he must have known it was something like that. But I couldn't believe it was so that he just stopped. He stopped doing that. He'd still like touch, he'd still kiss me, he'd still like, he was still abusing me. He's like, but just not putting himself up against me anymore. Oof.
Wow, to stand up and finally say no. How did that had to be like a huge win.
It was so scary. I literally did think because I always had this feeling. I said that I don't think it was him that told me, but somebody obviously had told me that if I ever told, I'd be killed. So I was so frightened to say no. And to find that, yeah, I didn't even know where yeah, God, I feel like, yeah, go me, like, so brave to, like, do it because I just had no idea what was gonna happen to me. I did, I thought this is it, my life's done, that's it. But and then and it just seemed so simple because then he just that was he just didn't do that anymore. It was like you almost think, "Wow, if I could have just, like, if I ever known that." But of course, I couldn't know that. It wasn't even in my I had no idea what he was going to do to me when I was 3 to 5. Had no understanding of what was gonna happen. I had no understanding of what he was doing. It was like so I couldn't say no. It wasn't in me to say no.
No, I get it. That's a huge step though, to finally say no. That's a big step forward. How did it affect you? Uh, you know, did it affect your grades? Did it affect you becoming a partier or self-destructive in any way? Can you recall any of the negative effects on you?
So I've suffered other abuse as well. So I was also abused by a cousin in the home. I think I touched on it before, maybe. So he'd come to live with us as he's a couple of years older than me. So not only did I have the headmaster, but I had this cousin as well. So abuse has literally again decimation because it is the word for it has decimated my life. It's like it's taken me till from like 2021 when the dissociative stuff came back to me, and then that I've then been on what I feel like is a proper healing journey since then. But it's affected my memory. I'm diagnosed complex PTSD. I struggle daily with just trying to interact with the world. I find the internet is really great because there's distance between us. When I have to deal with people, so I'm really isolated. I hardly see anybody because it's just too overwhelming. Because then I get so many thoughts are going on. The thought process is all like just overload, complete, like hypervigilance, overthinking, like just frightened. I'm just like mistrusting. It's like I can't deal with people in the space. It's like, ooh. So the internet is great because it's like I can just, I'm safe here in my home, got my dog behind me. It's like I'm in my little bubble. I don't have to worry about if we were face to face, I'd still be worrying about Is Clark going to touch me? Is his friend going to touch me? Is like who else is there? What's going to happen? How do like trying to keep on top of myself, like saying, like you can say no to stuff, like try and be strong, try and be confident, try and do this, try and do that. So I've got all this self-talk going on as well at the same time. It's like it's a minefield, for want of a better phrase. It's so difficult. It's so difficult. But this is the best that I've ever been. In the whole of my life, this is the best I've ever been.
There's improvement and growth.
Yeah.
When I if you were in the studio here and we were doing this, I always ask the guests, I ask before they come in when I do the pre-interview, I go, are you all right with a hug at the end? Or I go, I don't want to go into your comfort zone, just tell me no if you are. And I think everybody has been okay. You might be one that would say, I don't know, Clark. I'm not so sure about that. And that's fine. I don't want to intrude on anybody's what they're comfortable with.
Oh my God. It's almost like I don't want to say the norm, but almost the norm that I just went down the route of drugs, alcohol, bad relationships because I didn't understand they were a bad relationship. I just didn't get it. I'd never been shown a good relationship, so I just didn't get it. Just so confusing, and the world was just so confusing.
Yeah, you didn't even have like the basis of a good relationship with your mother. So you don't even have that as like a foundation. Then the headmaster, and then the cousin living with you. And then so all Juanita knows is chaos and mistrust. And so then what we know is in our childhood, we carry forward into our adulthood. So then you're like, all right, well, the norm is chaos and mistrust. Let me find a mate who's going to give me chaos and mistrust.
That's exactly what happens. A few times over.
Were you ever married?
I'm technically still married because he hasn't signed the divorce papers. I don't know what's happened there. I've got to do it again. But yes, so I was married. I can't really say that I'm still married because we've been separated for so long now. But yeah, so that's another part of the dissociation tale because so I met my husband. Obviously, it wasn't my husband then, but I met him when I was 22. I'd just come out of a violent relationship that I'd fallen into. 2 years with that hell. And then I fell straight into meeting a drug dealer, meeting a drug, basically meeting a drug dealer. Um, but to me and to everybody else, I feel like I went full circle because he's very similar to the headmaster because, but in a different way because he's a drug dealer. So he's everybody's favorite guy. So, but he's the same. He's really, it's the same but different because he's like quiet and assuming. He was never violent with me, but throughout the whole of our relationship, he'd been having non-consensual sex with me. So not taking no for an answer right from the get-go. But I'd not recognized that because he's a lovely guy. He's a lovely guy. He's taking me to parties. He's like treating me well. I'm his girlfriend. And then I go on to be 5 years later, I go on to be his wife and we bring up his kids together. And it's like, I had no idea about what had happened to me with him until 2021 when I remembered about my cousin. And then so I went into therapy then for 2 years, private therapy. And then throughout me starting to get better, I want to say, more of the dissociation started coming back to me, which was with my husband. We were still friends until that point. We were still really good friends. And the relationship had broken down. We'd been split up about, I don't know, 5 years, maybe 7. But yeah, so he was still in my life, still a big part of my life. I had no idea that been the way he had with me, but he has. He had.
It's followed you all throughout your life.
It's yeah. Yeah.
I had asked you, like how you would want to wrap up the end of the show. And you said there was a poem you wanted to read.
Yeah, so I have yes.
Is this a poem you found, or is it a poem you've written?
It's a poem that I've written.
Okay, awesome.
I wrote this in probably 2021, 2022, something like that. So I think it was 2021. So this was part of my healing work that I was doing through of the abuse of my cousin. It's nothing, there's nothing in it that says about that, but this is where that came from, was the healing journey that I was on after finding out about the dissociation and what he'd done to me.
You want to read it?
Yeah, so I'll just recite it.
Oh, you've got it. You've got it in here.
Yeah, I got it in here. I hope I got it in here.
You've got dissociative amnesia. Right?
I know. Like, please don't.
Well, let's see if you've got it.
I hope I don't forget it. That would be awful. It'd be
I
awful.
might have just jinxed you.
And this poem as well was said at my mum's funeral. I didn't attend the funeral because the cousin that abused me when I was a kid was one of the pallbearers. Still with her up till the end. And for many other reasons, all the other reasons. But so yeah, and I have said the poem before on another podcast, but I just love this one, and my sister loves it, and a few friends love it. So hopefully you and the viewers love it as well.
All right, let's hear.
Okay, so it's called The Journey. I went on a journey, a mountain to climb. I know when I get there, I'll find peace of mind. This path, it's not easy. It's rocky and steep. Sometimes I lose footing and fall to my knees. Past a field full of daisies and my friends the oak trees, till I come to a clearing where I can just breathe. I carry on upwards with dead ends galore. I'm hungry and thirsty and my feet are now sore. I push through the tiredness, my struggle, my plight. Just a few steps before me, the end's now in sight. At last, at the summit, what a beautiful view. You can fill in here what fits best for you. I thank everything in me for reaching this scene. I look on in amazement at where I have just been. When I notice beside me her lovely old shack, inside are my ancestors having a chat. They fill me with sarnies and plenty of tea. They give me a gift box that's meant just for me. The day's getting late now. I feel I must go. My essence renewed with a wondrous glow. On the way down, an easier track, then stretched out before me and welcoming me back. A carpeted meadow of sweet buttercups that I had not noticed when on my way up. When out of the box comes a melodic sound. I'll open it here, now I'm back on home ground. Inside the box was a bird to set free. She gave back the confidence stolen from me. She's flying to your house, so open the door. She's holding inside her what you're searching for.
Bravo.
By Juanita.
Beautiful. I loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Cool. Any last words?
I think that was it. Thank you so much for hosting me. It's been appreciated so much. Thank you so much.
I'm honored to do so, Juanita. I'm glad I could be here to help you free yourself a little further in your journey.
Yeah, thank you. I hope I made sense.
You were fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. There was Juanita on her journey of healing. And, it just, that early abuse, that early chaos, it just follows us. And it's a journey to break free from it. And she broke free. She's in the process of breaking free. And reach out to me. Come on the show. Rid yourself of shame, and let's free you. See you next week. Peace.